Hi, I'm Diane Wentworth with Berkeley Lab Strategic Communications, and we're here today because we're going to talk about the lab's beautiful new AV recording studio. As you can see, it's set up for 4 people. We have also a guest on Zoom. And so we want to go around the room and introduce ourselves. Why don't we start with you, Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Nuss. I am with the Berkeley Lab Strategic Communications Department, and I work with digital media, so I'm a digital content specialist.
Cindy?
Hi, I'm Cindy Lee. I am a senior communications specialist in the advanced light source at Berkeley Lab.
Great. Miles?
Hi, my name is Miles Green. I'm the team lead for IT Audiovisual Services here at Berkeley Lab.
All right, thanks, Miles. And on Zoom?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jay Kraus. I am the group lead for the cybersecurity group at Berkeley Lab.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome, everybody. Miles, why don't we start with you? This is a wonderful space. Tell me, how did it come about? How did you decide that we needed a recording studio at the lab?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's something I noticed that during the pandemic, there were a lot of podcasts being recorded by individual groups, but everyone was using their own laptop, usually a USB camera and microphone. Sometimes they were using headphones, but then there were instances where they were interviewing people that had better quality equipment. And so there wasn't a match in the level when you listen to it. And so I thought it would be great if we had a facility here where we were able to produce high quality audio and video. And if you're being interviewed by someone external who's using all the high end equipment, that your level would also match them and that we could have something on site that was near the IT division so that we could help and make sure that everything that comes out of the lab is at the highest quality level.
What was the response when you first proposed this idea?
I think the biggest challenge was finding the space to do it, but the response from IT management was from day one, go for it. And so I really appreciate Adam Stone, Luis Corrales, and they supported us in the idea, the conceptualization, the hardware procurement, clearing out space, testing, and now we're at the outreach point.
Great. And you've got a lot of things in this space of a former conference room. You've got this table set up. You also have couches, and you can do all sorts of setups. Was that the plan in the long run to make it as flexible as possible?
Initially, we just wanted to start with this setup with the table and chairs, but I realized in doing my research that there's a lot of podcasts where people are sitting in lounge chairs or in a couch. So I created a secondary area, but that kind of came after the fact.
So have people approached you to use this? We don't want to. This is a great resource. As stewards of Berkeley Lab, we want to make sure that we use it for the right things, for messages that are on brand, that are approved for the lab. Have people approached you with different ideas yet?
Not just yet. We actually built the studio and kept it somewhat under wraps for the first 6 months to 8 months. We wanted to start with the lab directorate and strategic communications and then make an announcement to the greater lab community. So that just happened in January of 25. It's been a secret for the past year, but now the word is out.
The word is out, and we can talk to some of our other guests here who have been using it. This is an interesting grouping we have here today in the AV recording studio, and you really brought us all together. Can you tell us why you've picked this select group to come together to talk today?
I invited each one of you here intentionally because Diane was the first host of the first session that we did. Cindy was the first guest of that first session who walked in cold, had never seen or heard about it before. So I thought it was important for her to speak to how easy it was to come sit down and use it, right? Jay is the first host of a recurring podcast that's recorded right here on site at Berkeley Lab. So his take is really important. And then Jenny is a science liaison, a strategic communications person who has reached out to scientists and brought them into the studio to record. And so I thought between all of you, you have unique perspectives on how this should work. And you've laid the groundwork that we're hoping other people will follow. So I thank you.
From a strategic communications standpoint, we want to make sure that the messaging is on brand. It does support the lab's message. This is not the place then maybe to record your birthday greeting to a family member. But again, if anybody has any questions about whether it's an appropriate topic or not, we can help you work through that. Jay, you've been hosting the lab's longest running continuous serial podcast, if all those words make sense there. Tell me about it. How did you get started in the podcasting business?
Yeah, no, thanks, Diane. I think we realized we had a problem, and our problem in cybersecurity was communicating to people the very unique threats that people face at Berkeley Lab. And for many years, we try to communicate those threats via, conventional mechanisms. We will advertise on Elements, or we will create IT news articles, but we were still having a lot of problems sort of getting our message out. Very much facing the problem of, if you haven't told somebody something 3 times, you haven't told them yet. So we're facing a lot of, even though we had ran articles, we had communicated an issue, we were still getting emails or questions where people hadn't seen that we had communicated an issue. And Miles was mentioning that, the lab has a new communications method, which is, we can record and talk about and share, via audio visual format, instead of a reading format, to communicate these risks. So we took them up on that offer. We decided, let's go and use a modern medium. So we've taken a lot of the articles and communication that we've done in other formats, and we're just representing them or retelling them in an audio video format. We found that that's had a lot of benefits too, because you can only capture the so much audience attention when you write something down, right? I mean, you got a page or two to communicate to them. So what we're finding in the podcast, it gives us more time and more capability to dig into the nuances and sort of talk about how the attack affects Berkeley Lab, or maybe bring it in to people's personal lives. So it's really besides just being another medium, it's been a medium that's also allowed us to express more detail and get into the more nuances. I think also we hope it's more engaging. There's a lot of material out there to read. There's a lot in Elements every day. So we try to present cyber supplements in it's a very casual format. Miles has helped us guide to this format where it's a conversation. We hope that, somebody might play this during their lunchtime, or play it or after hours, or sort of background us. So you could hear about this, these important things that are affecting Berkeley Lab. You could hear about the latest cybersecurity attacks, but in a easier to digest, friendly, nuanced. We try to joke along the way. We try to have some laughs. We try to, it's a serious topic, but we try to bring some other aspects into that conversation, and hope that, this important message can get better penetration, more people understand it, and so we've been excited. We started off on this a couple of months ago, and we're about to publish episode 5.
You mentioned the fact that this is another channel to get people engaged. And we did find during the pandemic that people were looking for new ways of getting information, and were moving to podcasts, especially as they had time to maybe walk at lunchtime, or their commute was different, and that they were looking for ways to kind of fill that time. So one of the things we've been looking at is a podcast platform for the lab, and we do have a trial going. And we'll be getting some more information out about that. But one of the things we learned is, I think, Jay, it sounds like what you're saying is people really want to hear from the expert. They want to hear from the person who really knows the information. That sounds like what you're doing with your podcast series.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that's the way communication generally is moving. I mean, yes, the written material is still important, but I think especially as we look at like generational changes happening, right? I mean, people are just consuming information in different ways now. So I think that's also what we're trying to do, is engage with populations that may prefer their, or even people that may prefer their communication be done in different formats than reading. I mean, some people are just they consume information better if it's presented visually or audibly. So I think we're also trying to appeal to that, to generationally, and just different modes of how people consume information.
Yeah, there are definitely a long list of learning styles that are out there. So I want to turn the conversation to Cindy. Cindy was a guest here a couple of months ago when we were introducing the culture survey. We did something similar to this. We did a recording in here and used the Zoom as well. Cindy, you walked into this place, right? It was a conference room before. It's hard to believe that it was.
Right.
What was your impression of this when you walked in? You didn't have any background. You didn't know the why we were doing this. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, so just to set the scene, you walk through the maze that is Building 50. You find 50B 2222, and you knock on the door, and they let you in, and you realize, oh, there's something magical behind this door that just looked like any other door in this hallway. And, I am not an audiovisual expert. I hadn't played around with any of these recording tools before, but the way that Miles and his team had set it up, it made it so easy to just sit down at a microphone, put on the headset, and go. I think your team was interviewing us, leading us through a conversation to talk about some of our experiences at the lab and how that contributed to what we were looking for in the culture survey. And it was so easy to just immerse myself in that conversation rather than worrying about what tool am I using to be able to share my message and share my story.
So have you started to use audiovisual channels at the ALS?
So we are interested, especially because at the Advanced Light Source, we're undergoing a very transformative time with our upgrade. And we've had a lot of new staff. We have people who are working together on problems that they haven't encountered before. And so we really need new ways to communicate, to team build. And so we are looking to add more of an audiovisual component to stories that have traditionally been text-based. Like the others just said, we consume information in more than one format. It's not just words, it's also images, it's also sounds. And so one of the things that we're doing this year on the ALS communications team is something called ALS United. We are featuring people who are based at the Advanced Light Source and at the Advanced Light Source Upgrade Project and showing how they work together as a team, because we are all about team science at Berkeley Lab. And we don't want to just have their words on the screen. We also want our audience to be able to hear them, to see them. And having an audio visual recording studio will be so helpful for that.
Okay. And Jenny, you have a unique viewpoint on this as well. You've been using this studio, right, to bring in scientists to talk about their science. How have you been using it?
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll have an interview with the scientist and it'll be text based. So being able to kind of switch it up and, like everyone's been saying, hearing something is a lot different than reading it on a page. So when we're bringing in these scientists, it's great because they can come in and you can really like feed off of each other's energy and hear their personality in a way that you can't see it written on a page. And that I think can really bring in some magical moments in an interview and really helps to, get to know your colleagues too, and get excited about their science, and they can get excited about what you're doing. And yeah, it's just been a really great experience bringing them in.
Now, did you use this also with an external media person? Didn't you do something there?
Yeah, so part of my job, I do some animation work at the lab. So like voiceover is a really critical piece to that. So being able to bring a voiceover artist in here to record a script was another application of the AV recording studio that has been really seamless. And just coming in here, having someone sit down and record something, it took like less than 20 minutes. And it probably, if I went to an external vendor, it probably would have cost thousands of dollars to do that. So being able to do it in-house and so easily is really great.
So that's one of the things, Miles. Can you spend a little bit of time telling us what is the product that people get out of the studio after they've spent some time here talking?
Absolutely. And I could start a little bit earlier than that, just in terms of like probably the question a lot of people are wondering is, how do I get started, right? So we've created a page which we can share in a resource links on the IT website, where you would just request a recording studio. The first step, though, would be to get approval from strategic communication or your division communications contact, just to make sure that something doesn't get recorded, released, posted, and then we find out about it, right? We want to make sure, as Diane mentioned earlier, that everything is on brand. And then we recommend doing some practice session, develop a run of show, which we mentioned during our hybrid events training. This is the same. Like, have your talking points, but not an exact word for word script, because as Jenny said, you have to feed off each other's energy and you have to look each other in the eye, laugh a little, have a flow to it, not just like sitting there reading, right? And then, as Cindy mentioned, there's very little for you to do as a guest. When you come in here, you sit down, you put on the headphones, and you focus on your content. So we engineered it that way on purpose, because we don't want to be in a situation where we're trying to train people how to use the studio. It's pretty much practice your talking points, come in, have a comfortable conversation, right? And then your final deliverable will be delivered to you within an hour, usually maybe 2 hours, depending on how long it takes to render. But essentially, we have 3 cameras that will give you a feed from each one of the cameras. We also do a cloud recording so that you have each audio file separately. And then we recommend reaching out to creative services for any post-production needs. So it's really easy in terms of requesting, coming in, recording, and getting your files. The hard part is making sure that you have compelling content, that it's on par with the lab's messaging, and then your post-production to make sure that you have a polished product that gets released. But you have help along the way.
So you may have to define post-production for me because you're giving me files. I'm a newbie. What do I do with these files?
I'm giving you files, and so you will be able to have one camera feed that goes straight down the table and then different camera feeds that show each side of the table. And so if you wanted to intersperse those together as people talk, then that would happen in post-production because we're not sitting there switching cameras every time someone speaks. When you do that, you run the risk of missing the first part of what someone said. So instead, we just run all cameras simultaneously, and then we hand you all of the microphone feeds separately, all of the camera feeds separately, so that you can piece it together the way you like.
And where do I go to get that sort of help? Because if I'm not technically savvy and able to edit myself.
Well, it'll vary. Sometimes people will be able to do it themselves. Sometimes the division comms can help with that. But in most cases, it would be creative services. So you would just reach out to creative@lbl.gov, and they would be able to analyze all your files, talk to you about what it is you're looking for, and help you produce that final product.
All right. Let's take one final pass around the table. Jenny, what did you love most about using the AV recording studio?
Yeah, I think it can be when you walk in here, if you're not used to seeing all this equipment, it can be a lot. But I think once you sit down and you get into a little bit, like I said before, it just being able to hear yourself and see your interviewer or interviewee across the table just makes it a fun experience. And yeah, just great.
It was fun. Cindy, what about you?
I love what Jenny said about feeding off of everybody's energy because I think there's a lot to be said about getting people in the same room, whether you're in person or virtual, like with Jay. We talk a lot about that on the science communication side, too. Scientists can come up with better ideas when they're talking to each other. And I think that also speaks to the branding and the, messaging that both Diane and Miles have talked about today, how we want to make sure everything follows the lab messaging. And, I think we all work here because we believe in the lab's mission to bring science solutions to the world. And so I don't see these messaging guidelines as restrictions, but as how do I support the lab's mission and how do my teammates have the skills and expertise to help me get that messaging out to the people who need it, who will benefit from it. And, all of these guidelines will help us get that out clearly. So I really love the team aspect of all of this.
That's great. Jay, what about you? What has been the biggest takeaway for you from using the AV studio?
My biggest takeaway from the AV studio is it's easy. Like I think we had a lot of fear going into this, like it's going to be hard. There's a lot of equipment, like we got to prepare a script. I think Miles said it a minute ago, but I'll reiterate it too, is you really don't need to do a lot of prep. So I think that's one of the things we've learned as we've done additional episodes is you don't need to script this all the way around, all the way through. You don't need to have dialogue for each character. I mean, it works much better if you show up, two people have a conversation, and then Miles produces file for you, right? So don't be intimidated by the complexity of the audio visual. There's lots of microphones, there's lots going on. It's actually really easy to go and use the AV studio and get a very high quality product. I mean, as you can probably hear, the microphones are excellent, the headsets are excellent. It's in a very quiet space, it's in a very secluded space. It's just a really easy service to use.
I love that. Thank you. And that was the goal, and it was a lot harder to put it together than it is to use it. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to keep it well oiled, which we won't talk about. But ultimately, it's like a movie set. right? As the actor, you should just be able to stand on your mark, deliver your lines, and not worry about what's going on backstage. So that was what we tried to build.
Well, you've done a great job. It really is a beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful location.
But I can't take all the credit,
No,
though.
I know there's many people.
Darren Chavaria, in particular, my teammate in IT Audio Visual, has been very key in helping make this happen. And Luis Corrales, who I mentioned earlier. We couldn't have done it without him.
So what's the one takeaway, Miles, that we want people who are listening or watching this recording to do?
Did you know that there's a recording studio at Berkeley Lab where you can walk in and produce high-quality audio and video productions right in Building 50B with very minimal practice and prep? Well, now you know. Visit it.lbl.gov to find out more.
You've just made a great public service announcement. Congratulations, Miles.
I'm the commercial, yeah.
Yeah, you are the commercial.
Well, and I think it's important to also point out that you asked me earlier, are people coming to me and asking? And my answer was simple. Like, you bring the scientist to me, not the other way around, right? So any scientist or any operations person that comes to me and says, Miles, I heard you have a great studio. When can I use it and how? I'm always going to point them to their division comms or strategic comms because I see myself as a studio engineer, not the person who is, patrolling the message.
So, Miles, congratulations. We're going to have a lot of the links that people need in the text that accompanies this recording so that they know where to go next. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.